really barriered by funding. So really want to help support the ecosystem. And then along with both of these ladies, obviously the three of us founded the event called FoundHers and FundHers. Love the play on the words. We came up with that idea collectively and thought it would be a fun way to make it more accessible for women and individuals identifying as women and non-binary individuals in the space to get knowledge around the kind of opaque current setup for funding, which is very much how it feels, I think, to a lot of founders. So together with these ladies, we are changing the world.
Changing the world indeed. You know what I love about it? It's really universal. There's a lot of folks that want to raise their hand. They're in the back room. And it doesn't matter what position that you're in. If you're one of these folks who just want to do something, you're in the back room, you're shy, you lack confidence. The imposter syndrome is real. I think all of us has been through there and done that. I just want to say that if you're there, you want to raise your hand. These are the resources that we're talking about. These are why initiatives like FundHers, FoundHers is in place to really help elevate. And it's okay, right? If you're afraid, you just got to go ahead and have a bit of faith and confidence in yourself. So I just want to put that out there. A lot of times people just don't even want to raise their hand. And I think it's really important to say that it's okay. We can do it. So this is really interesting because I just so much power here right now in this room with all of us, very strong, very focused in regards to being a change maker, focused on impact. What's the origin story here? Who wants to take the lead and just share like how this got started? Was this on a napkin? Were we on the phone? There was a friend. What happened here?
Well, the
Let's take the
original
lead.
connection was actually Megan and I. We had connected through my podcast, which is currently on hiatus, and got to know each other. And then I introduced her to Sarah, and the three of us collectively were talking about impact. And so I'll let them fill in their own words what their view is. But I think like we all just saw a great need in the space and how we each brought very unique talent to the table to actually have an impact. So I'm going to be quiet and let them like fill in their view of it. That's how I view our origin story. It could be completely
No,
different depending on what I
it's
see.
nailed it. I distinctly remember when Amber was interviewing me on her podcast, and I was talking about the impact, the importance of bringing women and just diverse thought in general into emerging tech. And then after she stops recording, she just says, very first thing she says is, I will help you with this. And so it just went from there. And then being in Austin, we have the Consensus Conference that is very well attended. It's one of the biggest crypto conferences in the world, really. And so we just started looking at, well, logistically, we've got this conference coming up. It's in Austin. I have a community in Austin of women in Web3. So that seems like a, natural opportunistic time to see what we can do. And so we put together an event that had panelists of the two founders who had been through the fundraising drama saga in their own right, and two people with familiarity from a funding perspective, one in pretty traditional VC across multiple different VC channels. And then Amber, just using her podcast host skills, she did a great panelist interview. And it was really well attended. We had over 100 people there. So I think the turnout just blew us away. And then that has really helped us think about, okay, how do we keep taking advantage of the opportunities that we might have individually and collectively and turning that into something that other people can get value at. So we did another one at the Bitcoin conference in Nashville. And we've got a couple other opportunities this year to do similar versions of the same thing.
I think you nailed it, Megan. I feel the same way. It kind of happened very organically, right? Everybody, just like Amber mentioned, everybody brings such a strong, different piece to the group. And I think it really balances the entire thing out. It's wonderful. And we utilize those strengths. And I love that because it really shows you how you together can move mountains, right? Like you could do something on your own, but it's so much more fun to do it collectively and using everybody else's strengths to help move something like this forward. So
It takes a team. If you do it by yourself, how are you going to move that mountain? We might be able to move a rock. So coming together, we can't move that dang mountain. I've seen it done before. I live in Hawaii. Have you seen these mountains form? They happen overnight. Next thing you know, lava takes over the road. So I literally witnessed Everybody feeling blocked. I seen it firsthand, a community at chaos. And then what happens? The community comes together and clears the road and a new one is formed. And sometimes that road is even better. And so I like to use analogies, and that's just one of them that makes sense to me because the hurdles can be scary, right? When you see something, you think the road is blocked and you think that there's no way to get through it. I think that's the point where you're like, should I give up? And I believe this is the point that most need to overcome because that's where the real work starts beginning and then the impact is made. You mentioned you went to Nashville, and that is bold because there's a clear line between Web3 in regards to alternative tokens compared to Bitcoin and the world of Bitcoin maximalists. And when you think of like these initiatives with yours and all of everything that we're all doing together, what a difference in regards to community needs. That I would love to know the impact of your efforts and how it differs between these two clearly different subset of communities.
Yeah, because I think what draws people into Web3 and where they start to get hooked is exactly that word, community. And so it's just a matter of like, you can be part of different communities. The Bitcoin maxis have a reputation at this point to hold up because it's a strong community. It's an origin community. At times it's been a hype community and a bear cycle community. And you have all those different iterations of community. And that's what's kind of cements that experience for people that are in it. And you can't really even buy into the themes of Web3 without being okay with things like transparency, ownership, principles of validation and verification, and just understanding the core tech. So I think it's like when we look at, and that part is consistent across whatever chain, whatever initiative, whatever project you really have, whether it's a gaming DAO with a native token that allows you to participate in that game, or Bitcoin, which has a totally different element to it. It's almost to me, it's like the same thing. It's just a different outcome or a different product, if you will. If that makes sense.
Mhm. It is. There's a difference too. I witnessed it. So working in the trenches of crypto early on, you get to see that divide and also the iteration cycle of it. Something that's really interesting to me, I think most aren't talking about, is that when you are a Bitcoin maxi, the perspective is there's nothing better than Bitcoin. Everything else is subpar. Yeah, I get it from a standpoint of first to market, of value storage. The narrative is strong and sound for Bitcoin, but to be so maxi, this can be the only one. There's a big, large world out here and there's bottlenecks. And so I just love the innovation cycle that Web3, as we have our ethos now, is so very strong. And now when I look at things like what's going on in Nashville and I see what's happening with the Bitcoin maximalist community, which I do value, I value all of the communities because I've been there. But what's interesting is that we have this layering of technologies. We have Bitcoin, the store of value. Think of that as a foundation layer for Bitcoin, what got it started, getting all the traction where we're at today. But what I'm witnessing in the background that's happening with the Bitcoin world is this evolution of layer two and even layer three. And when you think about that, the world is actually quite ambiguous. And the more that we sit there and look at these devices, earlier we were talking about AirPods, the connectivity of Bluetooth going between one system to the next. It's like we just want these things to work. And when we look at crypto, we think about the end user, the person or the person in the back room. Earlier, we were talking about the want to raise their hand. They're back there looking at ways that they could take advantage of some opportunity that might be perfect for them. And they're going to be looking at Bitcoin. They're going to be looking at things like Ethereum, whatever tokens are out there. There's so much out there, a whole sea. And I think we just have a really important iteration cycle we're going through now when it comes to like compliance and trajectory of these multi-layered ecosystem. So you went to Nashville, you got to see it, boots on the ground. This unity is starting to synergize between the two communities, I believe. And I think the time to say that we're no longer just Bitcoin only and Web3 only as everything other than Bitcoin, I think we're coming together. And I think this togetherness is creating a new opportunity, especially when we look at things like compliance and the evolution to support like small, medium, and large, or even enterprise businesses. So that was a lot. Amber, what's your thoughts? What do you think about this
See
between
my
like,
wheels spinning, couldn't
yeah,
you?
I know, I in the background. Go ahead.
No, I actually agree with you completely, Brandy. I think the one thing that is important to recognize is there's always going to be maxis no matter what sector it is, whether it's Bitcoin or like with Ethereum, right? There's a lot of people that are Ethereum maxis in their own way, but maybe instead of viewing it as this is the one end all be all token or coin, they view it as this ethos is how we should operate all of this tech under. And there's nothing wrong with that train of thought. But I think what most people need to be aware of, if not accepting of, is there's going to be a lot of forward thinkers who are viewing the space as a larger whole and how adoption realistically is going to happen. And it's not just going to be via Bitcoin as a mode of monetary value or on an off ramp rails using Ethereum's network or whatever the case may be. There's going to be a lot of individuals and groups like ours who really see the greater value and understand that for adoption to happen, we have to reduce the barrier to knowledge. At the end of the day, that's really what it boils down to. I'm old enough to remember when credit cards became a regular part of life and when the internet did. And I distinctly remember on both of those situations, there was a lot of people that thought that this would never happen. It will never be adopted. Same thing can be said of cell phones. If you look back through history of cars, every major technology. That's why there is actually like a data bell curve that's been studied and has replicated itself across every modern technology. And so I think like where I'm going with this is that users need to understand that when adoption happens, it's not going to be because my mother learned how to use a wallet and understands a smart contract. It's going to be because we've folded adoption and the use of the technology into our everyday lives in a way that it's seamless and that people don't even realize it. So there's always going to be maxis in every space. I think we celebrate those because they're the pioneers. They're the ones that typically got on early, but I think it's now is the time that we start to celebrate the people who are trying to break down the barriers because we really believe that adoption happens through knowledge. And I think collectively, that's really what we're trying to do.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I feel it too. The energy is real. This just makes sense. Like when we look at back at even what gave us Bitcoin in the first place, like I love the white paper. I was fairly early on, but I'm so engineered focused. I just didn't believe that this would become a real thing. It was a cool project, but the underpinnings of it, blockchain technology, that existed before, cryptography, that existed before. So when we look at these things that created Bitcoin, it's really just the recipe, right, of Bitcoin solving because this is mechanism. So that way we can have a trustless environment. And we're next generation of connected services are utilizing this technology because that proving grounds has showcased resilience from a value stance of an energy network. What I'm noticing is that things like Found Her, Fund Her, there's a real impact here. And there are multiple ecosystems that are coming closer together than they would like to admit. Sarah, I would just like to understand maybe your perspective on this. When you think about Bitcoin maxis and you think about the problems that we have between Web3, traditional maxi mindset, like, is that the right way to think when we think about next generation and connected services? And also, it seems more an education problem to me. So I know that's two parts, but I would love to get your ideas on it.
So I really truly believe knowledge is power. And I think you nailed it with the education piece. We know what we know. And it's a lot easier when we're excited about something, right? When we've started, let's just say, learning about Bitcoin, and that's all we knew. So you stick with it, and that's what you want. And that's what you know, and you feel comfortable talking about it. And I think as the technology has evolved around us and all of these new use cases, it's important that people just educate themselves, right? And that they lean on organizations or education. There's so much education out there now so that they can branch out into different things. But I think it starts with us first, right? We are curious. We say, oh, what is that? It's okay to not know everything, especially here where everything changes every single day. There's things that we were doing a year ago that is different now. So I think it's just putting yourself out there, getting that knowledge, leaning on organizations. And that's what we try to do with Founders and Funders. It's a comfortable space where people can come in, be themselves, educate themselves, ask. and feel comfortable doing it. So I think when you surround yourself with a really good environment that you can lean on and feel comfortable, I think everything else will fall into place and it makes you more knowledgeable.
It's sounding like at first it's community and then it's education because together as a community, we can share each other's experiences and essentially coach each other into doing the right thing. If we want to be change makers, we can collectively together figure out how we can have a stronger hold for what we're doing tomorrow. I just want to point to something that I think a lot of people forget. You mentioned credit earlier, right? We talked about briefly credit. And this is really interesting because it wasn't until 1974 before women had the right to even go apply for credit, to get a credit card, to buy a house. And when we look back at what really takes to be a change maker, it's more than just creating the next technological revolution. It's really about these core fundamentals, the community, the education side. This is really what crafts and creates change. Why I love your program and the potential impact of it. And so it really starts here. So really, I just want to say good job to all of you. Really, 1974, if you don't know about it, women had no rights. Like, think about trying to get a house. Think about if you're a single mom with 3 kids. Just think about what that was like for you in 1973 before they had the 1974 Act. And it just surprises me how a lot of communities like to create these divides and instead focus on unity. And right now, I think we have the best time in the world to finally come together in the world of crypto when we're looking at this legacy mindset of Bitcoin maxi versus the alternative Web3 ethos. I think together the hybrid approach is finally becoming accepted. Because when you do look at it, the facts are there. We are doing Bitcoin's value prop layer 2. We have Lightning networks. It's very similar. I understand that we're trying to put one thing as the number one, but togetherness is how we're going to make true change. And it's there really. A founder funders is one way that also to me takes strike like it did with 1974 with that credit act. So that way women and folks in minority can get the assistance they need without being discriminated on. When we think about this support, earlier I mentioned in the back room want to raise your hand. And that's why if you are watching this and that's you, don't give up, right? Many people have been in the same position as you. And once when you overcome it, then you too become a leader and you can help collaborate with your community and help elevate. And that's what I really like to see is just all of us helping support. And this is it right now. A really good job. So what can you share with the world right now about the Founders program? Like how do people get involved? What is the best next step here? Megan, pass that to you.
Yeah, with ATX Women in Web3 kind of aligns with that angle of it. So separate than the Founders and Funders initiative, which is more about like bringing together people to talk about that gender disparity in venture funding. Under ATX Women in Web3, we're using our own community to put together cohort style learning about just all the different things. Because I think when you look at the numbers, it's 2% of females get venture funding just in total. 2%. That means 98% goes to non-females. And even when you look at that trended over time, it's just a weird disconnect from the fact that women own and operate 40% of businesses. So a lot of the reasons for that are just in the, oh, I need to know everything before I do something mindset that is typically more feminine versus the, I'm just going to blaze into action and figure it out later, which is typically more masculine. And so we're putting together this cohort style learning to really cover all the different topics, cover the basics, talk about like how can Web3 and AI be used to really help transform your business. Have you considered doing things like on-chain customer loyalty or using AI to help speed up your QA processes or things like that? So everything from those practical types of approaches to, hey, here's some things that you need to be aware of for the legal landscape as it relates to emerging tech. And pulling all that together with like planning for growth and how do you get together the right team using the three of us, like our collective mindsets and backgrounds to, okay, how do you like thinking about from Sarah's perspective, how do you go about recruiting for the right team? How do you make sure you have the right people that are working with you? And then Amber as well has a ton of background on the finance, accounting, operations side of things. And that's a very critical part of it. So really trying to tap into all the different people within our community that can contribute something into this cohort style learning so that we can really continue to build a community around that. Because I really think it's through you brought up imposter syndrome earlier. Like a lot of times as female founders, we feel like we're on our own. And a lot of times too, like we're bootstrapping everything. I think probably all of us on the call have done that in one of our professional situations at some point. And it's just, well, I'll just figure it out and just make it happen. But the reality is, in order to have a bigger impact, you need to expand that scope. And so, getting people comfortable, having the community around it, being able to encourage people to share what they're building and how the content is helping them really narrow down that business plan and really hone in on the execution of it. I'm excited for it. We're going to be kicking off here soon. And it's just one of those things that's come together just through having conversations like this with people who say, that's awesome. That's so cool. I'm so glad someone's doing something about it. So and Founders and Funders has very much been a big part of that focus and journey too.
I want to add on to what Megan was talking about, just because I think what she just explained with ATX Women in Web3 and their boot camp, this is one great example of where the three of us have decided to create these collaborations outside of our space. I know you had asked, how do people get in touch with founders and funders? Really, it's through the three of us. Right now, the best way, if they want to know where we're going to be or how to get involved, or they have ideas and they're like, hey, it would be really cool to do this thing, reach out to the three of us. We're all on social media. We're super reachable. We're all responsive. And then the really cool thing that all of us have collaboratively agreed on is there's a lot of really wonderful initiatives that already exist. But the problem, as we see it anyway, is a lot of them are very siloed. So while there are excellent organizations already doing a great amount of work, they're failing to talk to each other. And collectively, we're much stronger. I think, Brandy, you already mentioned that. And we all agree with that completely. So, part of the idea that's driving this is if we can help be that conduit to bring some of these existing organizations together to collaborate at some of these events, then how much more powerful are we as a whole? So we're working with groups like ATX Women in Web3. Obviously, that's the first and foremost one we've been working with since Megan's so deeply a part of that and a founder. And then we are collaborating with SheFi at the Hawaiian Blockchain Summit. We've looked at collaborating with other women's groups at other upcoming conferences. We're always open to collaborating with a women's group or other companies and businesses that maybe want to say, hey, we support these initiatives. So we're always looking for open opportunities. It really just is about, if anyone listening or watching is sitting there thinking, hey, I have something I could contribute, even if it's an idea, reach out to us. We love to talk to people. And if nothing else, we love to help them make the connections that they need to move forward in their journey.
Sometimes you just don't know and you need to collaborate with folks. And that's the first thing to do, is just start asking questions. And it's okay if you have a bad idea. Maybe you find out it's been done before and it's not the best thing to move forward with. That's the most valuable part. You just got saved a ton of time. So you're not wasting your time and energy in the wrong thing. Sarah, you witnessed a lot of problems in the tech landscape. Even say Connect Net, we talked about the issues like even connecting with Bluetooth. When it comes to the impact here, what are you most excited about?
I think it's how it will change our lives in the future, right? What excites me the most is the unknown, how it's affecting. I think one that really catches my eye is credit, right? So there's this company called Fresh Credit, and it's interesting how they are utilizing FICO and blockchain to be able to create this. What does it look like in the future? How is blockchain being incorporated to what somebody's credit would look like? Where people would think, oh my gosh, that would never happen. Or real estate. You can now purchase real estate and cars with crypto. So it's really interesting. I think that's what excites me the most, is what this is going to turn into, right? And we get to be part of this evolving this time, which is really exciting.
Oh, it's super exciting. What I love most about crypto, everybody just thinks, oh, it's the automated layer, ultimately building an automated world. True. It's transactional. And I do see that ultimately automation is what we all seek, right? Even on our everyday lives right now. But the truth is, it requires human connectivity. And what I like most about crypto is the human connectiveness. And that's why it's more important than ever before for all of us to start coming together. And these materials, the resources, the value needs to be out there for the folks that need to find it. And this program that you three have founded is a fantastic way to champion that. Sarah, you raise your hand. Go ahead. Thank you so much.
So something else I wanted to add also, right, with founders and funders, we get a lot of questions, right? Not only from founders, but founder on the hiring side, like, how do I scale my team, or who do I hire, or where do I even get started? And on the talent side, we have so many people. This is new to everybody, right? It's fairly new. So people are like, I don't even know how to get into the industry, or how do I stay in what we call traditional Web2 jobs and transition into Web3? And I think that's where we can really help collectively at these events as well. How do we get you there? And having those conversations, because that is the future, right? That's the direction we're heading in. And it's just trying to get them there.
And these solutions, without having a destination path, we're not going to have the human connectiveness. Like when I'm trying to portray to everybody here that might be watching this is the fact that AI, the threat is about removing jobs. Crypto is a threat about automation and taking away potential freedoms. And it's quite opposite. It's quite liberating to have this world where you get to select the ecosystem that you want to dive into, that these ecosystems have alignment in regards to things that we value, and we connect with that ecosystem, participate in a community that's like-minded. One of my biggest hurdles when I was younger in a high tension household was finding my community. And today it's easier than ever before. The problem now, it's so saturated. So that's why it's great to have talks like this to communicate, to say that you're not alone. And also kudos, found her, fund hers. Really, the whole purpose here is to help elevate and create change. So you three are change makers, and I value you so much. I just want to say thank you so much for actually having a dream, following through, and you're also supporting it. I can't wait to hang out with you at the summit. We're going to be meeting up at the summit here soon on September 16th. Anything you want to say about the summit? What excites you?
I'll start. I'm super excited. I think that it is refreshing to get to participate in like the first conference that's happening around blockchain on the island and be able to say, hey, we got to be a foundational part of that. And we're making sure from day one that equity is a part of that discussion, and why founders and funders really wanted to participate beyond just individual entities, because Sarah and I both have companies that are actually co-hosting this first ever Hawaiian Blockchain Summit along with Anoa. And part of why we actually brought the whole group of us together to do this and not just the two of us and be involved is because we believe in a lot of the underlying foundations that the tech community in Hawaii really supports around equity and having a broader voice and making sure that we really respect the origins of a lot of the stories that make up these companies, which I think sometimes gets missed, especially in stateside in the US or from the US looking out to the rest of the world. We forget that everybody doesn't exist to revolve around us. And so it was an opportunity to really get involved at the grassroots level that has real impact. The other thing I do want to point out that really sets founders and funders apart, and no shade on anybody's game, right? Because the events that occur are always phenomenal. I've yet to go to one that I have not taken value away from. But when the three of us came up with this idea, we didn't have an underlying agenda about our own personal gain. And I think that in and of itself is a distinct difference from a lot of other potential opportunities out there to grow knowledge. Not that there's not value in every single one of them, but when people attend our events, they know that it really is about helping grow knowledge. So beyond just women, non-binary individuals, we really invite everybody to attend these because the knowledge that's shared is info that's actually useful for anyone. And at our last couple of events, it was really cool. We actually had a fair amount of people who just happened to hear about it locally and had no idea what it was. And they learned something. So those are a few more people that now are open to the perception of adoption that weren't before, which to me is like the definition of why this is around.
Love
Yeah.
it.
I guess for me, what I'm excited about, well, other than being back in Hawaii, which is just beautiful and gorgeous in its own right. But anytime you have a tech week of any kind, that's a signal that you've got a lot of people who are building there. You've got a lot of visionaries. You've got a lot of people with technical skills. You've got all the right cogs of the wheel ready to figure out how to work together to do a thing. And when you think of Tech Week, I think especially on the mainland, we probably, like most people, probably think about New York and San Francisco and some of these bigger hubs that are big hubs because they're already big markets and big cities to begin with. But I think having some of these more emerging tech scenes, like tech is everything. Everything we do is tech. It doesn't matter if you're in tech, like you are in tech every single day if you use a smartphone and a laptop, period. So it's like how many people out there in Hawaii that are native to that market have that next idea that they're just starting to think about how to form? And so when you have these resources coming together already, and then you're adding in a blockchain summit and some of these next generation tech topics to that and introducing that to people who might be in the earlier stages of their founder journey, then they're already being set up with an advantage because maybe they're still developing or building, but they're able to think, wow, that was really cool. Maybe there's ways I can incorporate blockchain into what I'm building versus then having to go retrofit something later on just to make it trendy. So I think it helps introduce those ideas in a much more approachable way. And that's why I'm excited about participating and just seeing what's going on in the tech scene in general in Hawaii because it sounds like there's a lot of activity and I don't think it gets a lot of press and it probably deserves it if they've got a whole tech week and a blockchain summit already happening.
Well, it's the first one, and we're looking at having many more. That's why we're so excited about this and setting the foundation. What a better way to set the foundation than with some authenticity and showcasing that there's love and support for everybody across all spectrums of the world. And something that's unique about Hawaii, it's the middle of the Pacific. It requires coming together, right? It really does. And so I think this is a signal to the crypto world to say that you're not alone. And I'm looking forward to the upcoming conferences, not just Hawaii, but we have all the lineups, like you mentioned, Consensus. I've been there. I participated, fantastic event, busy, busy, busy. Takes a lot of work to not only put yourself out there, but then to participate and give yourself to a community to be a resource. So I just want to say thank you to all three of you. Really good job because I know it's hard. I know it personally because of what I've done and what I've witnessed. It sometimes feels lonely and coming together. This excites me right now, believe it or not. And I just want to say thank you too, because this is the power of coming together because I feel better about myself when I'm doing. And I know that's a little of a bias on my end because I start my day every day with a mission for purpose. And you just help validate my purpose by us talking. I know it takes a lot of time to come together and I just want to showcase respect for it. Look at this group. I mean, my goodness, really geared towards making a change makers in the making. So thank you so much. Any last minute plugs before we disconnect? Amber, you want to call out anything?
I always have stuff to call out. I really, honestly, it would really be the two women I'm on this call with. It'd be Megan and Sarah and the companies that they lead. I think that's part of the beauty of coming together, like you mentioned, is the inspiration you find in other individuals. And Megan and Sarah are probably two of the most established women that I look up to in my life. And being able to see them lead in their companies and what they do inspires me every day. So I just want to say if people are looking in the world for a way into a tech role or really any role, Sarah's staffing company is global. It has some of the strongest alliances I've ever seen with companies all over the world and top notch just experience. I've personally used it, so I can speak from experience to say it's amazing. Megan's the same way with Leo Luna and everything else that she's involved in. I don't know how she juggles it all. So I'm constantly taking a page out of trying to like see how she's doing all of these things so that I can keep my chaos a little more under control. I just like absolutely highly recommend both of their companies, just bar none.
Well, we got to return the love too then. You know? No, I think and Amber's just got such an incredible journey. Everybody has just been so approachable. That's been such a great thing I've seen about just reaching out to people. And Amber was one of those people even just from the beginning. And I was like, oh wow, cool. And now here it is. We're friends and we travel together and we do these things and host these events. And now it's a lot of admiration for both Amber and Sarah and just how this whole collective has come together.
It starts with saying
It is.
hi,
Yeah, it starts with
right?
crying.
Yeah. Exactly.
It is really nice when we all get together in real life. It's always a great time. But I learned from both of them as well. And I think this is a perfect example. And I mentioned this earlier, right? How everybody has their strength and being able to lean on your friends, because that's what they all are, and business partners to be able to create something beautiful. And that's what Amber and Megan have done in my life as well.
Thank you so much, Sarah, Megan, Amber. I can't wait to hang out during the conference here. See you soon in person. Thank you for today's session. I think the world's going to value it tremendously.
Really quick, too, I just want to share a shout out to Ellen from Enoa. She has done such an amazing job co-organizing, and she's really took the lead in trying to co-organize the Honolulu Blockchain Summit. So I just want to say thank you to her. She's put so much effort into it, and she's really tried really hard to keep the culture of Hawaii within the summit. It's going to be absolutely amazing and wonderful, and we hope to see everybody there.
Oh, yes. Thank you for the shout. She deserves it so much. She is such a hard worker, doing everything she can to support her community. We're going to make a difference, and it's clear to me. Thank you so much, Ellen, and to you three for joining today. I appreciate giving the time. With that said, I hope that you have a great rest of your week. And until then, I'll see you at the summit.